And the strongest part is the hot flashes, because in Japan, women barely report them. I'm serious. The thing we're told is basically the definition of menopause. In one of the biggest studies ever done on this, Japanese women hardly mentioned it. And researchers think they know why. It might be the word. In Japan, menopause has a different name, Kōnenki. It doesn't translate to something ending. It translates to roughly the renewal years or the years of transition. Same biology, different word. And it seems a different experience as well. So this video is about something bigger than menopause. It's about what the words we're giving for midlife do to us. And men, that includes you too. I'll get to you in the video as well. If the idea of words shaping biology sounds interesting to you, this is the kind of thing I talk about on this channel, so please consider subscribing. Right, let me tell you about the study. Margaret Lock. In the 1980s, she was a medical anthropologist, which means she studied how culture and medicine shape each other. And she did something wonderfully unglamorous. Questionnaires. Over 1,300 Japanese women compared with over 8,000 women in Canada and the United States, all between 45 and 55 years old. Same life stage, same hormones, doing the same things. And the numbers came back strange. Hot flashes, the headline symptom in the West, were reported by roughly 1 in 10 of the Japanese women over a 2-week period. Among the North American women, it was around a third or more. The difference was so striking that at the time, everyday Japanese people didn't even have a common word for hot flash. Think about that. The experience was rare enough that the language never bothered to name it. Meanwhile, the Japanese women reported other things more, like stiff shoulders, headaches, a different pattern entirely. Now, Locke was careful about this, and I want to be too. Some of that difference could be diet. People often mention soy. It could be genetics, lifestyle. Scientists still debate the mix. But her core argument, and she wrote a whole book on it, Encounters with Aging. The whole argument was that biology and culture are not separate tracks. She called it local biology. The idea that the body itself is partly shaped by the story it lives inside. In Japan at that time, the story was gentle. Kōnenki wasn't a medical crisis. It was a life stage folded into the ordinary business of getting older, like adolescence, but at the other end of life. Nothing to announce, nothing to treat, just a passage. In North America, menopause was a deficiency, literally. The medical language of the time called it estrogen deficiency, a word that tells your body it is now lacking something. One group was handed a passage and the other was handed a diagnosis, and their bodies, it seems, listened. Which raises the obvious question: how can a word reach that deep? It sounds a bit magical. I promise you, it isn't. Psychologists have a concept called narrative identity. The short version is this: you don't just live your life, you tell it quietly, constantly, to yourself, and the story you tell decides what you notice. If your story says, "My body is failing," then every bad night's sleep becomes evidence. Every forgotten name, evidence. You start collecting proof for the story you were given. But if your story says, "I'm in a transition," then the same bad night's sleep is just a bad night's sleep. It doesn't get promoted to a symptom of decline. There's also something called expectation effects, and you already know the famous version for this, the placebo effect. A sugar pill can reduce real pain simply because a person expects and believes it to do that. This is the same machinery. Expectation isn't imagination, it's your nervous system preparing for the future it's been told about. So, when one culture hands you menopause wrapped in decline, and another culture hands you Kōnenki wrapped in renewal, that's not decoration. That's an instruction to your nervous system. Now, if you're a man watching this and thinking, lovely, not my department, stay with me, because I'd argue you got the worst deal here. Women got a bad word, men got no word at all. Think about what happens to men around this same age. Retirement, or the first time someone calls you senior at work and it isn't a compliment. The kids leaving home, the body quietly renegotiating its contract with you. That's a transition just as real as menopause, but in the West, there's no name for it. The closest thing our culture offers is midlife crisis, which isn't a word for the transition, it's a word for handling it badly. A red sports car is not a diagnosis. And here's the thing, Japan noticed this too. They have a term for this, Dansei Kōnenki, the male renewal years. It's a normal concept there, discussed in clinics and newspapers, at kitchen tables. So the same culture that gave women a better word gave men a word at all. And that matters because naming something is the first step in dealing with it. It's partly why therapy works. Words become handles. No word, no handle, nothing to hold on to. You just feel vaguely wrong and assume it's a private failure. So this video is for you too, maybe more than anyone. Now, let me tell you the mistake almost all of us make, and including myself generously. When the change starts, we fight to stay who we were. We try to keep the old energy, the old role, the old face, the old title. We patch and manage and apologize sometimes. We treat the change as damage and ourselves as the repair project. And it feels responsible, maybe, doesn't it? It feels like effort in the right direction. But look at what that strategy actually says underneath. It says, the person I was is the only valid version of me. Everything after her or after him is a lesser copy. That's the decline story again, just wearing different clothes, work clothes maybe. And the cost is real. All the energy that could be going into building what's next gets spent defending what's finished. It's like standing in the doorway of a room you've already left, insisting you still live there. So here's the other option, and this is where Kōnenki earns its translation. Renewal doesn't mean pretending nothing is lost. Things are lost, that's true, and it deserves honesty. Renewal means the loss isn't the whole story. Something is also being cleared, space mostly, but time, attention, the need to perform a version of yourself that was built for an earlier chapter. Psychologists who study people after major disruption, like illness, loss, big upheaval, keep finding the same odd thing. Many people don't just recover, they reorganize. Clearer priorities, fewer apologies, and the research name for it is post-traumatic growth. But you don't need trauma for the principle. Transitions shake the story loose, and a loose story can be rewritten. That's the actual choice in front of you, not whether the change happens. It does happen. The choice is which word you file it under. So, 2 words. One says you're declining and one says you're renewing. Same biology, and you don't get to vote on the biology. But the story? That part is yours. You're the storyteller. You always were. The Japanese had it right in the translation. These aren't the ending years. They're the renewal years. You're not fading out of who you were. You're becoming who you were always going to be anyway. If you know someone standing in that doorway right now, maybe a friend, your partner, mom, honestly, maybe your dad, send them this video. Not because I need the views, although I probably do and I won't object, but because somewhere out there is a person who's been handed the wrong word for what they're going through. And you might be the one holding the right one. Take care. See you soon.